Hey everyone, Ryan Young, Kama Jiu-Jitsu. Hope you're all doing well. I guess these videos that I've been doing on the history of Jiu-Jitsu have actually been pretty popular. I guess you guys all like them, which I'm grateful for. You know, I thought I was one of the few that actually pays attention to this kind of stuff or finds it, gets a charge out of learning this kind of stuff. But it's funny looking at the comments. Going back in all these videos, you know, for some things there is agreement, and for other things there's a dispute, which is fine. It's something that people are very passionate about, and I'm no exception. So here's what I wanted to go over today. So I did a video on Carlos versus Elio. I did a video on Halls versus Hickson. I did a video on the family champions. So today I'm going to do one on who, in my opinion, are the greatest ambassadors to Jiu-Jitsu from the Gracie family. So the first couple are pretty obvious, and I think as I go down the list, many of you will see as pretty obvious too. Now, in a lot of people's minds, I'm going to be missing a few people, which is fine. You know, I'm not going to name the whole Gracie family because I think in a certain way, they all have been ambassadors to the art because that is their family art. It would make sense that they would be. But for people like me on the outside, there are certain people that I just seem to think their name just kind of comes up more and more often. So the first one is very obvious. It all starts with Carlos Gracie. Why? First of all, he was the one who learned the art from Mitsuya Maeda, but more importantly, he had a vision. And his vision was to basically create a martial art that the world has never seen and have his family be at the forefront of it. And he had enough vision to see that his youngest brother, Elio, would be the perfect person to implement what his grand plan was. Now, of course, he did his part. He had to have 21 kids to do that. And Elio had to have 10 of them. I think 9 of whom were sons. He stayed with the plan. He made sure his family was healthy through the Gracie diet. He made sure they had a place to train and basically train together in the family ranch. And he had a brother who was willing to go through great lengths in Elio to do what he wanted to do and to implement the plan. Another thing is that Carlos had a great state of mind in that he could deal with all the different egos and personalities in his family and keep it all together long enough to establish the foundation for what he was looking to do in the long run. The next one has to be Elio Gracie. Now, a lot of people will dispute it, especially people who come down from the lineage of Carlos's side of the family, that Elio may not have been important. In fact, he didn't teach a lot of the early family members, when actually I think that's starting to come out that it's not true. He taught everybody. You know, and for whatever, you know, whether you like him or not, he did contribute hugely to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. Now, for some people to say on his side of the family that Gracie Jiu-Jitsu is Elio's Jiu-Jitsu, that's debatable. I don't know what Carlos's Jiu-Jitsu was like, and I don't know what Elio's Jiu-Jitsu was like. Everything that I know, it's just from speaking with family members and with friends of family members and kind of getting these stories over the last 28 years. Who else besides Elio? Well, Elio taught a number of people, including Carlos's family members, so they do converge here. And then also Elio had his family as well. So when you think about it, who do we have coming down from here? Well, you certainly have Carlson. Now, Carlson Sr. was an important person because he was able to take the mantle from the first generation and then continue it on into the second generation. If not for him being willing to step up and fight Valdemar Santana at a young age, when Valdemar was older than him and, you know, he was by all accounts a man, whereas Carlson was kind of a young man. I think he might have been still a teenager in their first fight. If he were not able to step up and successfully defend the family, then there's a good possibility that everybody after Carlson may not have been successful after that, because I think he was able to cross that generational line and create an example for the remainder of the generations, both on the father's side and on Elio's side. And this is what we talked about in the video about the family champions. But Carlson was a very big ambassador to Jiu-Jitsu. Now, his reputation about maybe not training so hard, liking to party a lot. You have very few people that are just so dedicated, disciplined, like, say, an Elio was to the art of Jiu-Jitsu and passing it on. Even Carlos. Carlos did Jiu-Jitsu for a little while and then basically had his brother do everything, and Carlos went and moved on to other different things. Of this generation, who are the big ambassadors? Well, let's just stay on this side of the family, right? So you have Carlson Gracie, you have Halls, who also, as we said in an earlier video, falls under Elio's side as well because he was raised by Elio. Halls is a big ambassador because of who he influenced. He influenced a lot of the current generation of masters in Gracie Jiu-Jitsu that exist today. He taught, or he had a big influence on a lot of his family's training because he was innovative, because he was the best of his time. A lot of people, they sought him out and they wanted to train with him. Even Grandmaster Hickson trained under Halls for a period of time and was made better by Halls. Now, who else do we have on this side? Well, you cannot leave out this particular person as an ambassador to Jiu-Jitsu just because if you think about who he's touched, maybe not personally, but his organization, and that would be Carlos Jr., also known as Carlinhos. And Carlinhos, he is of Gracie Barra fame. He is of the IBJJF fame. Those are both his organizations. I don't know how much he runs either of them on a day-to-day basis, but if not for him having that vision, you wouldn't have Jiu-Jitsu in every major metropolitan area in the United States and in many major metropolitan areas around the world through his Gracie Barra affiliates and through his sanctioning of tournaments. Tournaments are all over the world now. And I think he had a great vision in moving the Pan American Games and the World Championships to Los Angeles, which is where he saw as the next place for Jiu-Jitsu to literally explode. It already was big by then. Brazil was bigger, but he made a good calculation in moving it to Los Angeles and making his Gracie Barra headquarters in Irvine, California, because the US is a much larger market than Brazil is, because from the US you can launch to the rest of the world. So that is still his influence. Now, one of his students, also family member, Renzo is, if you just see every interview with this guy, he's always smiling, he's always laughing. One of the funniest interviews I saw was Renzo with Helson, talking about stories of the two of them when they were younger. There's a big age difference between them, but just how Helson was one of his mentors, or one of his, I don't know, what do you call it? Somebody who helps get them in trouble. I don't know. But Renzo, through his prolific fighting in the UFC, I think if I think of any Gracie other than Royce, I don't know if there's a Gracie family member who's fought in more UFC events or even MMA events than Renzo. Granted, Hickson has fought a lot. Hoyler's fought a lot. His brother Half has fought a couple or a few, I'm not sure. Hines fought a couple, but really nobody has stepped up to the plate as many times as Renzo. And Renzo, he get his arm broken, and he's laughing about it. And with him, he just loves Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. He just loves fighting. He's just a very passionate guy, and his happiness and his personality just is infectious. And everybody gets infected by Renzo. So he is definitely a big ambassador to Jiu-Jitsu. Now let's look on the other side. Obviously, on the other side is, love him or hate him, is Elio's oldest son, Rorion. Now, why is Rorion so important? Well, he was not the first one in the United States, but if not for him, really, there would be no Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in the United States, at least not to the scale that it was. Like Carlos Sr., he had a grand vision for Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in the United States. Now, whether or not you agree with his history of it, where he really highlights his father's accomplishments, and I've heard people say he embellished it. Who am I to say? He did what needed to be done to get a foothold, a solid foothold of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in the United States. The next one on his side of the family, without a doubt, is Royce. As Eli was to Carlos, Royce was to Rorion. Oldest brother, one of the younger brothers, and Royce, for whatever reason, was very influenced by his brother, and from the way I've seen things, having been at the Gracie Academy and knowing both of them, Royce kind of let his brother drive. And whatever his brother Rorion said to do, he just went and did it. I mean, he stayed at the academy, the Gracie Academy, until Hiron and Henner were old enough to take over the academy from Rorion. And then Royce went ahead and branched off and created his own association. He's very successful. Royce, doing what he did in the UFC, really helped to put Gracie Jiu-Jitsu on the map in the UFC. People like Dave, like me, we were training from before the UFC, and I kind of liked it that way too, where nobody really knew what we were doing. You could get into a fight and people would have no clue what's going on. But at the same time, I liked that Royce did the UFC. It exploded the membership of the Gracie Academy. It exploded the membership of my prior school when I was living in Hawaii, Helson School. And it made Jiu-Jitsu what it is today. Another of Elio's sons that I think is a great ambassador to Jiu-Jitsu is Helson. Helson basically planted Jiu-Jitsu in Hawaii. Now, why is Hawaii so important? The big Asian influence in Hawaii, over 50% of the population in the state of Hawaii has some sort of Asian background. And Asians have always been big in martial arts, whether it be judo, karate, kung fu. They even had that one, what do they call it, kajikembo. That all came from Hawaii. And Hawaiians are very big on martial arts. So once it became known that there was a Gracie in the state of Hawaii, people just flocked to Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, and they do to this day. He has affiliate academies all over the state of Hawaii. And they're all good-sized academies, and he's got a lot of black belts in the state of Hawaii. And I wouldn't say he owns Jiu-Jitsu in Hawaii, but his name on the door is on more doors than pretty much anybody else that I can think of, even more than Gracie Baja. And Helson continues to be one of the foremost voices for self-defense Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, if you ask him, he says Jiu-Jitsu is self-defense. It's not a sport. And then you also have Rickson. Now, Rickson is truly an ambassador because he is an innovator of Jiu-Jitsu. Now, a lot of people have not been exposed to it, but it is what it is. I mean, somebody had asked me on one of the comment sections where Helson lies as a family champion, and Helson told me over drinks because I used to go out and drink with him on Friday nights after class, that he felt he would be the best in the family if not for Rickson. And he says he gave credit to Rickson. He said Rickson is more serious than I am with regard to Jiu-Jitsu. He said Rickson gets enough sleep. He eats right, he trains, and he just lives Jiu-Jitsu. Helson just said he likes to have fun. And had it not been for that, it would have been, in his mind, Helson. And Helson was, his nickname in the family is Campeon, which is what, champion? And, they didn't call Rickson that. Although Rickson, Helson tells me Rickson is better. So who else do we have here? Now we're actually getting into, for me at least, non-family members. Because if you think about it, who are the people that helped to spread Jiu-Jitsu? One of them is Jacare. Now, who is Jacare? Jacare was the final black belt that Halls Gracie had awarded. What he did was, if you ever heard of the Team Alliance, that is his team. Alliance was one of the 3 or 4 teams that dominated the competition circuit in Brazil before it got huge in the U.S. It was his Alliance team, also with Gracie Baja, with Gracie Umaita, which is Royler Gracie, also Carson's team. And it was always the 4 teams that were always kind of going for the championship and all that. And for people like me out in the US, you know, I'd always kind of be looking like whose team is taking more medals. And it was, you know, if it wasn't Alliance one day, it was Carson another day, it was Umaita another day, and it was Gracie Baja another day. But they were always going back and forth, back and forth. So Jacare, to me, was a big influence in a lot of people's jiu-jitsu. Another one is Pedro Sauer. Pedro Sauer was one of the first to start teaching in Utah, which, who knew, would have been a hotbed for jiu-jitsu. But it became one, thanks to him. And he smartly moved on. I think he's out in Virginia now. And he went ahead and went the seminar circuit and built a great affiliate and affiliate network. And by building this affiliate network, he kind of did another version of what Carlos Jr. did with his Gracie Baja, although in a little different manner. And then on this side of the family, you have Hiron and Henner. Now, why would Hori and Sons be here? Well, they were one of the first to really take advantage of social media. In fact, the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu channel, also the Gracie Breakdown, those are all these two. And like them or hate them, with the whole Gracie University, with the online training, I think more people hate them for it. However, if not for this, if not for the two of them and their Gracie University, a lot of people wouldn't even know about it. Or if they did know about it, it would just be, the only exposure they would have to it is just buying people's DVDs or reading magazines. But at least now they have an outlet to get people to kind of learn it. Now, you know, I'll cover another video on online learning, but that plus the YouTube channel plus their, you know, their social media savvy has helped to get jiu-jitsu in front of a lot of people, you know, through their networks. You know, they've also got a huge network along with Carlinhos and Pedro. And in fact, their network is larger than Pedro's, but Pedro combined his network with theirs. So now they are kind of one, which kind of makes them a powerhouse. But as of the moment, these are who I'm looking at as the ambassadors for Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. You know, all these people, the later people, all benefited from the efforts of the early ones. And that's really how it is in life. You hope that your future generations can build off of what you learned so they don't have to try to reinvent the wheel. And truth be told, any one of these individuals down here would not have been able to do anything without Elio and Carlos. So that's what I've got for you guys as far as the ambassadors of Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. There will be more people that we will have down here. In fact, you may have some that you may feel should also belong on the list, and I get it. I can't get everybody. But these are the people that I think certainly deserve to be on the list. I want to thank you for liking our videos or disliking, also for sharing them. And it's very important to share it. If you think this is important stuff and you want people to know it, go ahead and share this. You know, let people also see it. And if you like it, subscribe it. Subscribe to the channel, and so that you can kind of get more updates as we do them. But anyway, that's all I got for you. I just want to wish you guys a happy rest of your day and happy training. Take care. Bye.